Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It is the Monday show on Friday because Newcastle United played Everton last night at Goodison Park and picked up another 3 points in the race for European football, Champions League football. Don't think it was the best performance we've seen from Newcastle United, but a sign of a very good team is to pick up 3 points when you're not necessarily at your best. But I hope you will excuse us because we will get on, of course, to talk about Newcastle's win over Everton, but we're going to indulge ourselves for just a moment because this week we were awarded the Best Sport Podcast 2023 from the Publisher Podcast Awards. That's right, Aaron, we did it.
Yep, against all odds.
The BBC we even nominated, so I was not overly confident we'd pick this up, but we did, and we just want to say thank you to you guys who watch, who listen, who subscribe and follow, who get in touch via email, via Twitter, even the ones who leave the not so nice reviews. We all appreciate your input, and it's a privilege to cover Newcastle United, and we like to think we do a good job of it, asking the tough questions as well as enjoying the positive element of Newcastle at the moment, and it's nice to see the hard work paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. As you've mentioned, thank you to all the listeners and all the viewers who watch us live. And also a big shout out needs to go at yourself. I know you're very modest and you won't like to admit it, but the graft you put on this podcast is second to none. And I'll forgive the fact that I didn't get invited down to the awards ceremony. I didn't get a sample any of the free booze that I heard was on offer. But yeah, over the moon and yeah, glad that you got to reap the rewards.
Yeah, it was a good night. And yeah, I picture here from the night, like this is genuine shock. I just did not believe we were going to win it. That's Arash there who looks after the podcast on a match day. And I still can't quite believe we've won it. It blows my mind slightly.
Looking a lot more sober there than I imagine 2 or 3 hours later post-award.
I had to log on very early the next morning and set up the website for the Everton game, so I didn't have too many ales. And today we're celebrating with a nice cup of tea and some celebratory roses as well for my showbiz editor there, Simon. So very, very thank you very much for those. Out of interest, which is your favourite rose?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I can't remember the last time I had one. I'm more of a heroes man, I think.
More of a heroes man. I mean, that's probably a debate for another episode. We'll crack into them later on. But now let's get on to what you guys are all here for, and that is a bit of a discussion about Newcastle's 4-1 win over Everton. I think yesterday was, in terms of the performance, a really important win because for me, that was one of the worst performances, I think, especially that first half of the season. Obviously, you've got Villa, so it was nowhere near as bad as well, but I just felt if Everton had something about them, in them first 20 minutes, it would have been a totally different scoreline. Newcastle couldn't hold on to the ball. They couldn't string a pass together. They looked a little bit off the pace. And yeah, I do think the game plan was, let's contain Everton. It was a massive atmosphere. If we can contain them for the first 15, 20 minutes, then the game was pretty much ours. And I think that game plan shone through.
I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit for that first half. I think it didn't look like there was any game plan first half. And if I'm completely honest, it seems like, yes, they're still racking up the wins, but away from home, I'm not sure what it is. Every week they seem to be trying to outdo themselves with which away performance in the first half can be worse. Really, really slow out the blocks at West Ham, even though they were 2-0 up early doors. Very, very slow in the first half against Brentford. Obviously, they picked it up in the second half. Villa, we all know, how that ended. And I actually think if Everton had a little bit about them up front, and if they had a little bit more confidence and they were on a bit of a better run, on another day they could have really punished Newcastle in the first half. But obviously, saying that, whatever Eddie Howe keeps saying to them at half time is working. They were, absolutely fantastic second half. We can't knock them for that. And even when they're not playing well, they're scoring a lot of goals, which, as you say, is the look of a really good side.
Peter says, personally, I think the Everton win was better than the Spurs one, simply because of the pressure and the fact Everton actually put up more fight. And I can see where you're coming from with that, Peter, because I do think sometimes when you have to really fight for the win, it can be more of a benefit than if you've won at a canter. You'd always like to win at a canter, wouldn't you, and score a boatload of goals. But I do think the benefits of really having to stick in and being second best for some parts of the game and then running out winners, and not only winners, but comfortable winners in the end, I think that can breed a lot more positive results than sometimes when you do just have it easy.
There's an argument for that because obviously the game at Tottenham was pretty much done after 10 minutes, wasn't it? 80 minutes, Newcastle were never really going to lose that game. It felt for a long time yesterday that, they could drop points, especially in the first half. And as I say, that, Brentford, Everton, tough away games where maybe they've been a little bit spooked by the atmosphere early doors. As soon as they get that out of the system, they're blowing teams away in second halves of games. And they're riding their luck a little bit away from home, but 6 games left, 4 of them at home. It's a big, big boost for them.
What did you make of the atmosphere before? And we all saw the videos of the flares and the bus arriving. Part of me thought, well, this is either going to go really well for Everton or this is going to send them even further down the track of being absolutely petrified. It kind of reminded us of, I don't know if we all saw that video like in Graham Potter's last few weeks at Chelsea when he went to the Chelsea meeting with the fans and he was like, we're going to effing win the Champions League. And it just felt like that where I just wondered if that's kind of going to be the response where they're not going to feel comfortable in that situation. I mean, like we say, for the first 20 minutes, though, they played all right, Everton, and they did push Newcastle. It's just Newcastle had a game plan and it worked.
Really, really baffled by Everton having some really big games at the bottom of the table. I think they've still got to play Southampton. They've still got to play Bournemouth. Yet yesterday was their cup final, in the words of Everton fan Tony Bellew. Look, they tried their best early doors to get in the heads of Newcastle players, and it probably worked. But as soon as that Callum Wilson goal went in the first half, you just felt the atmosphere drop. Newcastle, as I say, Newcastle fans found their voice a bit. Not sure what I feel about fireworks and all that before a game. It's a bit cringy for me. And look, Everton look doomed, by the way. They didn't even mean to score yesterday. They just had nothing in attack. The defence is all over the shop.
They didn't even mean to score.
They didn't. You know what I mean? They scored by accident. And I just think, if Newcastle had lost yesterday, it would have been an absolute shambles because Everton are it's the poorest Everton side I can remember. And, that's saying something given that Lampard was their manager 12 months ago.
Well, it's just a lesson on how not to really run a football club, isn't it? From top to bottom, you can spend all that money, but if you don't spend it wisely, and I think this is why Newcastle gets some unfair press from those on a national scale when they say it's all about money, because it's not. Everton are a prime example of how not to do it. They've still got some good players though, Everton. I mean, I don't think many people would say no if Onana or maybe Decore ended up being some sort of squad player for Newcastle next season. But the point is they can't score goals. They concede too many goals. And once Newcastle got through that early stage and then also, like I say, grabbed the goal in the second half, it was always going to be a Newcastle United win. And it was a good second half performance. I felt the last 15, 20 minutes was Newcastle free flowing, but by then Everton had practically given up anyway. And what I did find funny, a lot of people saying, Newcastle United are time wasting, Everton fans, Newcastle United time wasters. Newcastle would have quite happily played another 20, 30 minutes and made that a 7 or 8 1 win.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think there was much time wasting yesterday compared to games gone by. I will say one thing, we're very quick to jump on the likes of Ten Hag and Arteta and Klopp and all these managers that say Newcastle have spent. And I thought Sean Dyche last night coming out and saying that actually our Everton team needs to be what Newcastle are. 5 or 6 of those players last season were getting booed and they were, not in the good books of the fans. This is what we need to do. And it was actually good to see a rival manager not getting rattled and actually saying Newcastle have done really well with the players I was inherited. But Newcastle could have played, as you say, another half an hour, and I don't think Everton would have got anywhere near them.
Fred says, what a manager, what a team, what a win, what a set of fans, and what a city. Newcastle class in the second half. Isak's run for Murphy's goal was world class. We'll get on to the assists. Don't you worry. We've got Billy still over in sunny Spain. He says he apologised to the people who complained about the noise last night. I had a complaint from a lady in Madrid who could hear my scream when I thought Fabian Shared scored. P.S. Loving the show, boys. Thank you, Billy. I'm sure. Hope you're enjoying your time over in Spain. Let's get on to then the assists, because Newcastle scored 4 goals and we will get on to all 4 goals. But I want to talk about assists mainly because I've been thinking we have the tendency to set up, don't we, fan clubs at a whim here. We've already got one. We've kind of got a second one established in the Joe Willock Assist Club. I think we just need to set up a Newcastle United Assist Club Appreciation Society because, again, last night, do you know what? Great goals are fantastic. great goals. You love to watch them. You love to see them, but great assists, man. Is there anything better than just a great assist? And last night we had another 2 fantastic assists.
I've got a theory about last night's assist by Alexander Isak.
Oh, come on,
and
then.
We know obviously that Newcastle United players love the Everything's Black and White podcast. They clearly listen to the Monday show, and Alexander Isak clearly listened to Monday's show where he heard you call Joe Willock's assist against Tottenham the assist of the decade, and he thought, I can't be letting that stand. I can't be letting my good mate have the assist of the decade. I think we're going to disagree on this because I think Isak is better than Willock's, and I think you're going to.
Oh, do you know what? Yeah, I don't. Isak's was fantastic, brilliant, and I will watch it over and over again. But I still think Joe Willock's one on the weekend against Spurs is better because he's just got that. He's got seconds to make that decision in his head. He's also got to look out for that vision. The run of Isak, which isn't easy to do when it's a 35, 40 yard pass. I still think that one is better. I thought Joe Willock's one last night. I thought we couldn't get any better than that last night because that was fantastic. Everyone's forgetting about that one. Lovely little mazy run. And the way he knocks that ball back into the box. I mean, seriously, I know everyone's watching the Isak assist, but let's have some love for Willock's one last night because that one was up there as well. I don't understand how he's just shifted quickly onto the left and put it back into the box. It was beautiful. But yeah, for me, I'm sorry, Alexander, if you are listening, but it's Joe Willock's pass still for me.
We will have a poll up on the website this afternoon so that fans can obviously have their vote on it. But for me, I just think Isak, the one thing I'll say in favour of Willock's is that Everton's defending last night was pretty shoddy. But I just think he's going nowhere. He's trapped in the corner. He's got 4 players around him. Everybody's saying that it's shades of Thierry Henry. I agree. I think it's shades of R9 Ronaldo. Where he just...
Well, we had John Gibson saying, and you'll hear this on tomorrow's match preview podcast. He said it was shades of Madonna. I said Madonna. Madonna there. Goodness me, Madonna.
Didn't know she had
living on a prayer and all that. That's what our saints will be doing on Sunday. No, Maradona against England, and you see everyone remembers the hand of God, but you remember that other goal that Maradona scored. He says it reminds him a little bit like that of that.
In the words of Rio Ferdinand, let's just enjoy them both. Let's just not try and compare. They're both absolutely unbelievable. But I agree, Willock last night, the confidence to take Godfrey on his weak side and get past him with ease. As we said after Tottenham, he just looks like he's never been playing with this confidence. Even when he scored 7 and 7, I don't think we saw Joe Willock as confident as we've seen him now. And I know that it's something that keeps getting brought up, but that England call has got to be coming up.
He's fantastic again yesterday. A lot of people talking about the assists here in the comments. Current Phrase says it was world class, but was it technically an assist?
Well, see, I don't think it actually went down as an assist because apparently it took a deflection on its way through to Murphy. So, yeah, does that mean Willock wins by default? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Have we discussed this on the podcast before, right? If, let's say, Isak's running through there and he takes a shot, Pickford saves it, it falls to Murphy, Murphy taps it in. Is that a great goal?
Yeah, I think it is.
You think it is?
Yeah, I think it is.
I've discussed this with Boosie, Radio Newcastle's Matthew Raisbeck before, and I don't think it is.
So you think if Isak had done that run last night and then shot, Pickford saved it, and Murphy scored, you don't think it would have been a good goal?
For me, the goal ends, the run of play ends at the moment the keeper touches it.
And Isak wouldn't have got the assist?
Well, no, on paper he would have done, but the keeper saved it, so the end goal hasn't come to fruition, has it? I mean, it doesn't matter. We're going off track slightly, but I just wanted to ask you that question after to kind of Fraser's point there. Darren says, fantastic result last night. Great to see Murphy on the score sheet again. Yeah, I don't think you can quite believe his luck. Callum Wilson on the score sheet as well. And it is really good to see that both him and Isak are really kind of loving the competition. They are stepping up. They know they have to step up. I think Eddie Howe said neither can afford to have a bad game. Well, I don't know when the last time either did. Absolutely fantastic yet again.
He was man of the match for me last night, Wilson. And I know a lot of people will give it to Joelinton and others, but I think Wilson for me was just absolutely fantastic. He was bullying the defenders as per. I thought that second goal, beautifully taken. Even the reaction to get to the first one, I thought was really, really good. really glad that Howe brought Isak on to play alongside him, because we've seen it. He's done it a couple of times when they're chasing games and it works, and now we're seeing it when they actually had a bit of freedom to play together. Really interesting comments from Wilson at full time where he says that, Isak's a top player. He really wants more minutes with him.
He kind of set his stall out there, didn't he? Because he did say something on the lines of, "I'm more of a traditional
He
centre
did sort of
forward.
try and get that
Isak
little
can
dig
play on
in
the
there.
wide."
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, "Eddie, this is how you're going to do it, mate. I'm going to be up top. He's going to be on the left."
But Howe was actually asked about that on BT after the game and reiterated again what he keeps saying, that he doesn't see it from the start as a traditional, two strikers, a 9 and a 10. He sees it more off the bench. He sees it more when they need it rather than every game. And as I've said before, I think that's the way to do it.
I think a little bit of that might be the fact that if one gets injured from now to the end of the season, which on the home run, Newcastle are looking quite comfortable, losing a striker for the last few games is not going to be good for you. So I think that also plays a part. Maybe when they sign, as I believe they're going to in the summer, a third striker,
a Chris Wood replacement. Maybe.
Yeah, they may then go and start Isak from the start. But then again, he's got a load of competition, because you would assume it would be out on that left, because he keeps proving he can play out wide and drift in. But he's going to have a ton of competition as well, and they'll probably go out and sign another winger. Okay, primarily for the right side, but he's going to have a lot of people to be up against. It's going to be interesting to see what he does next season. But yeah, Callum Wilson's second goal, absolutely fantastic. Murphy, as we see on the score sheet, great to see him smiling away. Just good to see them continuing to score goals.
Yeah, I think what's the start? It's something ridiculous, isn't it? Like, is it 15 in the last 3 games, as Roger Cook's kindly pointing out there? As I say, blowing teams away. I think if you're Southampton, you're absolutely panic stations ahead of this weekend at St James's. Your run of form, how Newcastle are playing, the fact that Howe could name any one of 15 different players in the starting 11 and it wouldn't really weaken the team. As I say, 4 home games between now and the end of May is huge. And I mean, Eddie Howe won't want to admit it, but I mean, they're so close to that top 4 now. So close.
What do you make of the fact that it has been discussed more now, kind of out in the open? Do you think Eddie Howe has taken that? I mean, we don't know whether there was ever a ban on the word Champions League up until recently, but it does seem more and more players are openly speaking about the possibility.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that Trippier came out on Sunday after the Tottenham game and said we want Champions League, and it was the first time we've really heard a player at this stage of the season say something like that. Wilson was a bit different last night. He sort of didn't answer the question. He said, "Oh, we're going in the right direction. The games are running out. We'll keep picking up points." Eddie Howe, every time we ask him, it's the same answer. He lets us do the talk and he wants us to get the calculators out. He's not bothered in the slightest. But I mean, now it would take a huge... I think Liverpool would have to win all their games. Newcastle would have to lose 3 of their final 6. It's a big ask to throw that away now in the form they're currently in.
Shall we hear from Eddie Howe then after the game? Here we go.
Yeah, I think confidence was there. It was evident in that second half. Maybe a bit of the edge of the game had gone. But I think we had to earn the right to sort of get to that point, because Everton put us under pressure, a lot of long balls, a lot of crosses in our box. I thought we defended our goal really well in that first half. And the first goal was probably our best move, and it came at a good time for us.
How satisfying are those as a manager when you do earn the right to get the goals later on like that? You know they put the hard graft in to get to that stage.
I think in any game you have to do the basics right. So goal kicks, long free kicks, as I say, crosses. I thought we had to be perfect tonight because Everton would take advantage of us if we weren't. Mentally we had to be really good. I thought we learned from the game here last year, which was very, very similar in terms of timing and conditions. So yeah, really positive night for us. We scored some really good goals as well, so really, really pleased with that side of the game too. Yeah, I think it's a very good point, because I think when you look, you look at the Tottenham game and analyse it, and you see scoring the amount of goals we did in a short period of time, you then come to a totally different game. I mean, we knew today was going to be chalk and cheese from that game, that environment that we were playing in. So I felt my team needed to reflect that in its performance, and I thought we did, and that's a huge credit to the players for turning up, dealing with the physical challenge, the direct play. Everything that Everton threw at us in that early stage of the game, we dealt with, and then our quality showed.
He's spot on. They got through the tough times there. And he was right. Totally different game. Very easily a banana peel kind of game where you expect Newcastle to slip up.
Mm-hmm.
And we've mentioned there how important it was that they pick up the 3 points after having to face such a difficult 15, 20 minutes, but also beating a team like Everton where it's a totally different standard to Spurs. I know Spurs were dreadful, but in terms of what they're going for this season, it just shows that Newcastle can win in different ways. And again, that's just a sign of a good team.
Yeah, it's reassuring to know that they're not going to always be, as fluent and as relentless as they were at Tottenham. And yet, yes, they rode their luck at times last night a little bit, but this team, the run of form they're on, they've got the confidence to just go out and blow teams away. I think with the games coming up, a lot of teams still fighting for something. Southampton, Leeds down at the bottom, Arsenal, yes, the title might have gone, but they've still got to go and try and keep it up on City. They're going to have some tricky games between now and the end of the season. They're not going to have it all their own way. And I think, as you said, sometimes it's better to win dirty like that than it is to absolutely blow teams out of the water.
Indeed. When he talked there about a physical challenge, do you think that's maybe why he picked Callum Wilson ahead of Isak just to begin with? Because you are going up against two big centre backs, and he's got a bit more muscle about him. I mean, I do believe that Isak's deceptively strong. He just doesn't look like it. But do you think that's maybe the reason Wilson started ahead of Isak?
Yeah, potentially. I think his goal record against Everton as well is probably a big factor. I think that's 8 and 6 he's now got against them, which I will definitely know all about. I think also the fact that Sunday was quite testing, even though they were out of sight by 10 minutes. I think there was a lot of tired bodies there. Not surprised he made 3 changes last night. I think he probably reverts back to the team that played against Spurs on Sunday. That's just my opinion. And I think he knows. We saw it against West Ham early this month. We've seen it last night. Throw Wilson in from the start. The team's not depleted at all. It means you give Isak a rest, who's maybe still not at 100% after earlier this season.
Could you imagine when he is 100%?
Well, we kept saying Eddie Howe the last couple of months. Is he for 100% fit? And Eddie Howe said, in another team, maybe. In my team, the way I want to play, the intensity, no. You've got to be getting up to speed now, because if not, then I think Haaland wants to be worried next season.
Fred says Eddie Howe has been brilliant, and considering where he took over to where we are now and his leadership, he definitely deserves manager of the season. I mean, I've seen some bizarre calls. Eric Ten Hag, if he wins the FA Cup.
Gary O'Neill, I saw yesterday.
Goodness me. I mean, there's only one man in the running, surely, isn't it? It's got to be Eddie Howe.
I think if Arsenal had won the title, that would have been the only sort of stumbling block for how to win it. Yes, De Zerbi and Thomas Frank have done fantastic at Brighton and Brentford, but I just think nobody's done a job like Howe this season.
Darren says, after last night's result, you can see Leeds, Everton and Southampton heading out of the Premier League. I think Forest will stay up due to the bad form Leeds are in. I do think Southampton and Everton are gone. I don't think Newcastle are going to have any issues on Sunday, not unless James Ward-Prowse wants to play himself into the future of Newcastle United. He might have an absolute stormer. But
got taken off half time last night because he was ill. So either he's saving himself for his audition in front of you, his biggest fan, or he's just.
We've said this before about players, haven't we? We said Tielemans has got an audition and he was absolutely pants, wasn't he? Last time I was up here.
Audition pants.
So, well, actually, let's just keep saying they've got auditions and their best players don't perform. Not that it'll matter because Newcastle blow them out the water anyway. But yeah, do you think those are the 3 to go down?
Look, Bournemouth have pulled off a fantastic run. Forest at home, are a different animal. Leeds, I think Leeds just look done for. Leicester are still firmly in the mix. They can't seem to get out of it. I think West Ham and Wolves and Palace are pretty much pulling clear now. But I think Southampton are done for. Everton on last night's basis are in real trouble, and I can't see Leeds getting out of it at the minute. So maybe Forest so far is going to keep them up.
Castle will have a big part to play in the end of it as well, won't they? Facing the likes of Leicester and Leeds and Southampton on Sunday. So it's just nice again to see that Newcastle aren't involved in that, isn't it? Like, we're not sweating. What we are sweating on is making sure our passports are renewed in time for next season. Let's talk about Joe Linton then. It appears that he was playing through the pain barrier, took up a knock, so he's a bit of a doubt for Sunday. Fantastic again. We're running out of ways to describe him because he's just brilliant every single week. I'll say it again. Player of the season for me, without a shadow of a doubt. Great to see him. The confidence he's now playing with to take a pop there. He's not taking that pop, a few months ago, last season. He's not having the confidence to shoot there. Obviously, Pickford saves and falls to Wilson, doesn't it? And then obviously to be on the end and get head home the second goal. Just another brilliant all-round performance. Physicality, getting his foot stuck in, picking a pass, stamina. What more can we say about him?
We keep saying it every week. He just keeps delivering 8s or 9s or 10 out of 10 performances, and that level never really drops. Same again last night. We saw it against West Ham, that confidence to want to take players on. We saw it against Tottenham after 30 seconds on Sunday, where he was driving at the defence, cutting inside, having a shot. He is now the £40 million striker, I think, that Newcastle thought they were buying in 2019. You can play him in those attacking positions right now, and he doesn't look out of place at all.
I wouldn't want to play him as a forward.
No, but I mean, you're playing him out on the left of a front three. I'm not saying stick him, down the middle where Isak or Wilson would play, but I think in those attacking positions where in the past he just looked lost and so unconfident, I think now he's maybe not a £40 million striker, but he's a £40 million attacking player.
He looks worth every penny, is what you're saying.
and last season when he sort of emerged as this midfielder, everyone was talking about how good he is in the middle three. I think now we're starting to see that he can actually put in just as good of a performance out on the left or in a more attacking position than he has done than we've ever seen him really in the last 4 years.
A new nickname for him here, to coin a phrase, he says, they say, I agree, player of the season, Juggernaut Joe.
It's a good one.
My God, I'd never thought of that. Juggernaut Joe. I'm
one.
liking it. I totally agree with you. I thought it was good yesterday as well. I didn't think the midfield were at their best, especially in the first half, and yet they picked it up and we saw the level that they can go to. But just to be able to kind of, I think they did end up dominating it, and just to be able to say that when in the first 20, 30 minutes they were not up to scratch at all is, again, it's just a good sign of a good team.
They've struggled against teams at times this season that played 2 central midfielders rather than 3, and I think that was a little bit of the case last night in the first half. If I'm completely honest, I thought Longstaff and Bruno were really, really poor in the first half.
Yeah, I thought that was Bruno's worst game, I think, in recent times.
Neither of them looked like they wanted the ball. Neither of them wanted to keep the ball. Really, really shoddy passing.
Do you worry about Bruno and the fact that he is playing with this injury? And I just...
But how I know we always talk about how likes to deceive us on injuries, but how insist that he's fine? How insist that, yes, he had a little bit of issues around the cup final and afterwards. And does he look like he's playing through the paint to you? I don't think.
I thought yesterday he didn't look 100%, and whether he's just had a bit of an off 30 minutes or so. But I know people were saying, but he got the assist for Wilson's goal. Okay, he did.
He did have a much better second half, by the way.
Well, everyone had a better second half, didn't it? I do worry whether him playing it. Obviously, he doesn't want to drop out, and why would you? Because you're coming to the business end of the season. But I just felt yesterday he just didn't look his self.
If I'm completely honest, it just reaffirms the fact that we've been banging on about the last couple of months, is that they needed a John Joe Shelvey replacement in January to add a bit more cover, and they didn't get it.
That move's gone well for John Joe, hasn't it?
Yeah, I know, frozen out already. I mean, that double move to Forest, Dan Ashworth has pulled their pants down with that Chris Wood bid. He's out for the rest of the season. And from what I've heard, fans weren't very happy with him. And I mean, John Joe Shelvey, reverting to type, not going well for them.
Yeah, not at all.
Grass isn't always greener.
Nope. Les says, is the issue with Bruno not that the opposition is targeting his right ankle every game? That's Les's opinion. We're not saying that is this happening, but clearly you can see that opposition teams know how good he is, and I think the game plan for many is that if you shut Bruno down, then you shut Newcastle down. That's not the case because it's so refreshing that Newcastle have got so many good players that have one as an off day. The rest of them tend to step up. But do you think opposition teams are targeting Bruno?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's not a new thing. I think pretty much every game it happens. It's just that a lot of the time it doesn't work. Yes, he's on the end of a lot of heavy fouls and heavy tackles, but he usually gets the better of them. I thought Neil
Maupay should have been sent off yesterday, if I'm being honest.
Really?
I thought it was a horrendous
Yeah,
challenge.
it was a.
It's not. He's not missed the ball. He's just
Yeah.
kicked him in the back of the leg.
Yeah, I suppose you could argue that as well. I hadn't really thought about that one.
It was a disgrace challenge,
Yeah.
and Bruno nearly kicked off. But it was good to see Dan Burn getting in and just saying, "Come on, we're like guys, we're winning here. Let's not ruin it." I thought it was a disgraceful challenge because obviously Joe Linton went after him as well.
Yeah.
And also, the other challenge on Sean Longstaff was utterly bizarre. I mean, penalty or not?
I thought that was a penalty. I think
I thought it was a red card. Looking back at it,
I don't think it was a red card. I think
it's
that's
foot
a
high,
penalty.
mind you, innit?
If I'm completely honest, I think Newcastle did themselves no favours. Longstaff stays down, and Longstaff seemed to be the only one appealing. I think if Newcastle players had surrounded the ref, because even in real time, I thought, he's caught him there. And was he on the pitch? Was he on the pitch? Was he off a pitch? VAR can't have looked at that and said it wasn't a foul. Of course, it was a foul. It was.
They did look at it. They did look at it,
They
though.
looked at it, but how are they judging that that's not a penalty?
It's a VAR, though, isn't it? I mean, they tell me today is Friday. I'm thinking it's probably Saturday, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't trust them to look at a calendar, let alone a potential penalty.
But I thought that was a penalty, and I think if Newcastle players had made a little bit more fuss about it, it would have been given. But luckily, in the end, it didn't matter.
Now, what was interesting after that, obviously, Longstaff clearly injured after that challenge. He just did not want to go off. Trippier was getting absolutely crackers at the touchline at Longstaff, and then there was a subs made, and it looked like, again, when the subs came on, he was told, come on, get off, and then 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, he was eventually subbed. What do you reckon went on there? What did you make of it?
I mean, Trippier looked fuming at the fact that Longstaff wasn't.
He looks scary when he's angry, doesn't he?
But to be fair to Longstaff, I think the Longstaff of old might have said, right, okay, Trippier's telling us to get off, I'm going to go. He stood his ground and he did not want to come off. And I know he came off 9 minutes later, but fair play to him for trying to get through it. That's what we want to see, even if it was, really struggling. Eddie Howe basically said at the end of the game, he said he didn't know if Longstaff wanted to come on, if stay on, if he wanted to come off. He couldn't really work it out. But in the end, he needed to come off, and they're going to have to assess him before Sunday.
Billy says, I agree, Marpé should have had a red, but Dan Burn calmed that situation down for the ref. Let's talk about the decision not to play Dan Burn. And I am a big, big fan of every time Eddie Howe drops a player, rests a player, call it whatever you would like to call it, they are ill. Because Dan Burn was ill.
Yeah,
miraculous recovery, just like Longstaff against Villa.
Yeah, the whispers before the game was that he was ill and that he wouldn't be risked. I'm wondering whether the performance that Matt Targett put in was maybe, changed that a little bit.
Iwobi, had him for dinner a couple of times, didn't he?
Iwobi, when he stormed past him and then shrugged him off the ball. And I don't want to be disrespectful to Matt Targett. And I'm not saying this is a fantastically agile, amazing footballer myself, but it looked like, when in Soccer Aid they put Jamie Carragher up against Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
It was one of those painful ones where he just thought he's just running through treacle here. And then I just saw it was.
He stayed down to catch his breath more than anything else.
He stayed down thinking, please can share or bottom and deal with this. But Matt Targett, is he 100% fit? Probably not. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But what I will say is that we've been talking about it on this podcast a lot. Lots of calls for him to come in when Burn has a stinker. He came in last night and he didn't have a good game for me.
No, I think the issue is that to get fit, he's going to need minutes, and that's very difficult. We know already how big fan of Dan Burn's not going to change your defence unless he feels he really has to. So when is Matt Targett going to get those minutes that make you match fit? It's really difficult. He didn't have necessarily a bad game, but I don't think he did anything which you go into day to Benton and you're like, well, I'm definitely starting on Sunday because it's going to be Dan Burn, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll be very, very surprised if it isn't.
But yeah, what did you make of him calming down that Morpo situation? Another sign of a good leader on the pitch.
Yeah, I think, him and Trippier exemplified it again last night. Both very, very calm when they needed to be. That's just what you get from Burn, though, isn't it? Yes, he can lose his rag a little bit and sometimes ends up effing and blinding at the referee. But in moments like that, that's where he's really, really a good influence on the team. I thought performance-wise as well, he did okay when he came on. Good going forwards. Fabian Schär not happy with him though for getting offside and denying that fantastic goal that Billy was screaming the house down for. But yeah, really, really good. very surprised if he's not back in Sunday.
Yeah, great effort from Fabian Schär, but I suppose it's all right when you're winning 4-1 that someone gets in the way of it. He has commented today with an angry face on Twitter, but he says the kind of 3 points is all that matters. And there's clearly a great team spirit, a great unity running through the dressing room, great mentality as well. Like we say, to beat a club like Everton, who made the racket that did beforehand, fighting for their lives, like I say, cup final day, but also when Eddie Howe is making the changes, I think he's making them without the fear of anyone kicking off. I don't think in the past we've had that at Newcastle under different managers, and I don't think many Premier League clubs probably have that running throughout the dressing room, where you can make decisions that you think are for the benefit of the team, and the players kind of accept it. And the only way they push back is by coming off the bench and running past all 11 players and popping the ball into the box for the second best assist of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the group that they've got is just, we've said it so many times, the group is just such a tight-knit unit. Eddie Howe wanted it that way in the summer when they were getting offered players left, right and centre. He wanted this really cohesive group with no sort of players to come in and think they're bigger than the team. And funny enough, a colleague that I used to work with on the Nationals, who was an Arsenal fan, messaged me last night on Twitter and said, do you think he's going to be able to keep Callum Wilson happy? Everybody knows he's actually out and out striker, but Wilson's, is he going to get the game time? And I thought, well, Wilson's not the player to kick off anyway, but at the minute he's doing all he can. He's coming in when he needs to come in. He's not huffing and puffing. He's, stamping his authority on the team. And also, my mum, who's a big follower of the podcast, she'll be listening to this. She actually texted me last night and said, I love every single one of these players. And I was thinking, it's so hard to remember a time where you loved every single player in the squad. There's no bad eggs. Every single player playing for the team. And hopefully, we've talked about this so many times, the challenge is making sure that as Newcastle go up a level and start playing the Champions League, that you somehow manage to keep that squad as cohesive as it is without big personalities around it.
And he was asked about that, wasn't he, in the press conference last week? And he said kind of what we've been saying, that it's got to be the right player. And he kind of mentioned the kind of the unity and the feeling within the dressing room. It's going to be very, very, very difficult. I'll ask you more about that in a second. Roger says Target got done a few times. It was still good to see a proper left back in action. Shades of what's to come. Fingers crossed. Anthony says, love the way Murphy made the celebration all about Isak. Shows team before individuals 100%. And it's interesting there you mentioned about Callum Wilson. I think what probably plays into the hands of Eddie Howe is that, without being disrespectful, how many other opportunities are the likes of Wilson, Jacob Murphy going to have to play in the Champions League?
That's exactly the point, isn't it? I don't think anybody's going to want to rock the boat at this stage of the season and potentially jeopardise a European night next season. And the likes of Wilson and Target know that they're one injury or suspension away from walking back into that team. So, yeah, I think that's definitely another factor.
And Derek says, I wonder if St. Maximin has looked at Willikinho and Isak's assist and thought, I better get my act together.
It was Willock last Sunday. Isak, as we know, listened to the pod on Monday. Who on earth's going to step up on this Sunday? My money's on Bruno. I think we're going to see a piece of quality from him.
Because I've said he's struggling and he's gonna go, right, this one's for you.
That Andrew's just
talking a load of waffle. Thanks, Bruno, if you are listening. Again, let's not forget about Willock's assist last night. Can we let's not forget about it, people, because it's up there.
I haven't forgot about it. It was a fantastic bit of play.
Go on, I'm just making sure. On the comments made by Eddie Howe then about bringing individuals in, just give a bit of insight into, you think, how it's going to work between him, Steve Nixon, obviously all these scouts that they're looking for, have employed, or the head of recruitment and what have you, Dan Ashworth. How is it going to work? What I'm kind of trying to understand is maybe the chain of command, so to speak.
I think Eddie Howe's 100% got the final say on players. Even if Dan Ashworth thinks it's a good fit and Howe doesn't want it, that's the deal vetoed. Steve Nixon, we know, has got his fingers in a lot of pies. He's been in South America the last couple of months, numerous occasions trying to find the best sort of young Brazilian and Argentinian talent. they're obviously hiring a lot of European scouts as well to try and make sure they've got the sort of an eye over all the leagues. Ashworth will have his team. They'll have their list for this summer, which I'm sure is flexible and they're changing given, who's in and out of form and what competition they're going to be in mainly. I think Nixon brings them the players along with Ashworth. If Ashworth thinks they're a good fit for the club and the way the club want to move forward, it gets put to Eddie. I think Eddie gets the final say.
As Les has just said here, João Pedro to Brighton agreed apparently from numerous of sources. Now, of course, Newcastle came very close to signing him in the summer in January as well, I think it was, wasn't it? Clearly a player they liked, clearly a player who I believe was on the list as well this summer. Brighton have got the steal on that one. Bit of a blow, do you think?
Yeah, everything you hear about João Pedro, positive. He's had a very good season in the Championship, even though, he was sort of denied that move in the summer. Brighton very, very rarely miss with their transfer targets. I'd be surprised if he's a flop there, if he goes there. It just shows Newcastle are fishing the right pond, though. If Brighton are anything to go by, the players that they're spotting, as I've said, are moving on to bigger clubs, are doing really, really well, actually.
What they've done is they've gone, oh, Dan wants him. It's good enough.
It must be good for us, yeah.
I'm joking. Brighton do an excellent job, and it's great to see them trying to rattle the established so-called Big Six as well. And it's interesting, if you look there, I've got the table up here, and we're looking, if you look at the bottom 6, maybe say 7, I think you could take a player, at least one player from each one of those teams who could help Newcastle in terms of progressing next season. I mean, Southampton, we've mentioned Ward Prowse. They've got the stop laughing, right?
Ward Prowse on commission again.
You've got the young centre back.
Selasu.
Yeah, and then you look at Everton. I've mentioned, the likes of Unana, who I think could quite easily do a job, or Damari Gray should Newcastle feel like they need an extra little winger. Leicester City, there's a name there that totally escapes us.
You could actually pick 3 or 4, I think, from Leicester.
You're going to say Tielemans, aren't you?
Yeah, not Harvey Barnes.
Harvey Barnes. Well, I think Madison's the one that tops it. I'm a big fan of Harvey Barnes.
I would love, Iheanacho, I would absolutely love to have in.
I don't know if he's too sulky, maybe,
Good player, I think. Really good player.
And then, of course, I say Tielemans, Harvey Barnes. So a lot of, even, right, Samaria. And I know the history there, and Steve Bruce and his little private jet and what have you, but I think he's coming to his own, actually.
Really, really struggled, didn't he, before this season?
He's not going to oust.
Like a flop. Yeah, maybe he's a squad player. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm convinced.
Nottingham Forest. I mean, there's one name that stands.
Two names.
There's two. Go on.
Chris Wood and John George. The one that stands out, Nottingham Forest.
Brennan Johnson.
Brennan Johnson.
Big future player ahead of him.
Renan Loddy, potentially at left back. Wouldn't be surprised if they sort of revive their interest for them. There's a couple in that Forest team that you think will do a job.
Jack Colback. On to Leeds United. We've spoken about. I'm a big fan of Tyler Adams.
Yeah.
There's a few with us.
Jack Harrison, really good player.
Rock has been mentioned as well.
Well,
he's not even getting any game time.
They found him for $3 million.
You've had Somerville as well being linked, and the other chap on the other side. Also been linked recently. I can't remember his name. It'll come to us, but there's been a few linked because they're young and they've got potential.
Yeah,
as there's been a few linked there. West Ham, Declan Rice in it.
Imagine Declan Rice. And if I'm completely honest, very, very slow start the season, but really looking good at the minute. And Lucas Paqueta. Just imagine that, the Brazilians. Imagine the Brazilian three. No, but Joe Willock, man, he's my favourite Longstaff. Where does he go?
Can't have too many Brazilians in the squad. Then on to Bournemouth there. I mean, Philip Billin's been mentioned again recently, and someone that obviously Eddie Howe knows about. And look, I think he would be an excellent squad player to have. Yeah, really, really good. At St James early this season, he's had a very, very good season in front of goal. I actually like 2, Jaden Anthony, very good player down the left, and also that young left back they've got, Zamora, both very good players that I wouldn't mind taking either. And I'm just going to jump up to Crystal Palace in the table because obviously Wolves are there, but you've got Ruben Neves who could do a job, but Eze, I mean... Or Elise. Yes, I mean, 2 fantastic players. I think with Eze, I've been told you can't really put him into a system. You have to build the system around him, which could potentially... Is he good enough to build an entire team around in the Champions League? I don't think so. No, good player, though. Good players to shot about. And let us know there about the players we've mentioned there. There's a few comments coming in. Darren says Harrison would be a good one. Les says definitely Brennan Johnson for me. Darren asks about Somerville, who I mentioned there. Yeah, so plenty of good comments there. Rice as well mentioned. Roger says, I've got something with it. Roger says the wages would be a stopper, unfortunately. Well, that's going to be one of the issues, isn't it? How much do Newcastle really go and spend on wages and then potentially break the structure they've got so far?
I think not even the wages, just the money it would take price-wise to get him out. David Moyes has already came out and said it would take a record fee, and for Newcastle to go out and spend over 100 million on a player, it would be a big, big ask at this stage in their journey.
It certainly would. What we're going to do now is talk about the comments from the Aston Villa CEO. You've probably seen it doing the rounds on social media of late, and basically saying not only does he think the Premier League should re-examine the Newcastle United takeover, he believes they are doing.
Yeah, very, very interesting comments from him on speaking to Sky News. Goes completely against what Richard Masters says, that, you know, these things aren't talking about publicly. You know, I'd be very, very surprised if Aston Villa CEO has that type of information when, you know, as Richard Masters has said, it isn't really widely spoken about until after the investigation's done. Look, I thought some of his comments were valid about Chelsea and Abramovich, but yeah, really, really weird for him to attack Newcastle like that, I thought.
I suppose it's something that Newcastle United fans and Newcastle United themselves have just had to got used to and are going to have to just deal with, I guess, because every time something like this comes up, that question is going to be raised. And the more successful Newcastle United are, the more criticism, the more scrutiny that's going to come the way of the board and the club.
It's nothing new, is it? I mean, we've had this before. There's, you know, obviously a lot of Premier League clubs that weren't happy with the Newcastle takeover, even going through in the first place. A lot of them that have called privately for it to be re-examined. Eddie Howe and the club have had these, you know, questions before. They'll deal with them in the manner that they're dealt with. And if an investigation comes, But at the minute, I just don't think there's enough grounds for it in the Premier League size.
I think Billy's been on the sangria, if I'm being honest. I think it could be interesting should the two go out and spend big and bring in Harry Kane.
Does he get in over Wilson and Isak? That's my question.
I don't think he would suit the system, would he?
I think very, very good. I mean, of course, that would say a very, very good player. He would walk into pretty much any team in the world. But again, you know, he'll have a lot of suitors this summer, and I just think Newcastle at the stage won't be able to tempt him.
But sticking with Spurs, we want to say thank you to Spurs for a 2-2 draw against Man United. It means Newcastle have a 2-point gap on Man United in third. Man United still do have a game in hand, but a good result in terms of Newcastle chasing third place, because that's where Newcastle United are at now. They're not worried about fourth. They want that third place. It's a great result for Newcastle, I think.
It felt like the perfect result, really. We don't want Spurs getting too confident and winning and trying to claw back a top four spot, but also, as you say, to damage Man United like that. Yeah, perfect result, I thought.
And Newcastle United, how close are they to that securing top four, do you think?
If you ask Eddie Howe, he'll say they're not close at all. I think if you ask me, who I don't mind sort of saying it and potentially jinxing it, I think, look, they're so close. It would take the most monumental of fall-offs for it to not happen, and the evidence so far this season and last is that Newcastle don't really do monumental fall-offs at all. So 3 games, I think they're a couple of games away.
How do they deal with Sunday? Because the worry will always be complacency. It didn't show against Everton. Southampton pretty much know, I think, if they don't pick up a win on Sunday, that's curtains for them, isn't it?
Yeah, you imagine so. I think going into that game, the message should really, in an ideal world, be do what he did against Spurs. I think they need to be quick out the traps again. No more of this letting teams have the better of the first half and then picking it up. But one thing I will say is that we haven't really seen that at St James's Park recently. I think it'll be another big atmosphere Sunday, a nice early kick-off. And hopefully they're out of sight early doors and the sort of pressure can come off a bit. But I think Newcastle at the minute are a different animal at home. We saw it against Man U and Tottenham. They're blowing teams out the water early doors. And I personally think it'll be the same on Sunday.
Let's hope so. A few more comments. Sam, who regularly fills in when I'm off on my jolly, says, congrats on the award. Rumour has it the panel were impressed with the Forest review episode when Andrew was on holiday. I don't know where you got that rumour from, Sam, but I did want to actually say what makes it winning the award even more special is the fact that the competition out there. So Sam from Newcastle Fans TV, True Faith, there's loads of fan content out there, which makes us have to really step up. And there's other media outlets. We always joke about the competitor from the other media outlet. They do a fantastic job. Razor, who we mentioned it on the show with BBC Radio Newcastle, does a kind of different podcast after every game. So the market is full of Newcastle United podcasts. Everyone brings something to that market, so it's even more special to get this kind of recognition, I think.
Absolutely, and we always talk about the fan clubs that we've started on this podcast. I'm just glad that there's clearly a little Everything's Black and White podcast fan group out there. But in all seriousness, Sam and the other contributors to this podcast make it happen, as well as obviously yourself and Ash and me. But yeah, and look, as you said, it's Friday afternoon. We've got the roses here, cups of tea, another huge Newcastle win. What more could you want?
Graham says, I think third place should be the target and we deserve it. Can't see us dropping no more than 4 points. Carl adds, the owners of the club have shown how to create something inspirational for the community. It's been an amazing lift for everyone in Newcastle following the Mike Ashley era. Totally agree with that. Let's just finish on another plus point. Actually, might be the wrong way to describe it, but Callum Wilson getting out and about in the community. Obviously, food banks are a horrendous thing. To have them in this day and age is it's just, we should not have to have people relying on food banks, but unfortunately we do. Great to see footballers getting out, and sometimes, and I'm not saying this has happened to anyone in Newcastle, but sometimes opportunities present themselves where you think players have gone along just for the going along's sake. It looks good, but with Callum Wilson in his interview, you felt it was an absolute genuine, and it pulled on the heartstrings.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see that the players are buying into stuff in the community like it. I mean, I personally do a lot of work with the People's Kitchen, which has just seen an astronomical rise, since COVID. That a lot of people are really, really struggling in the region with the cost of living crisis. And as you say, good to see. It doesn't really feel like the players are doing it as a token gesture. It feels like, the club are really making a big effort to do all they can. The work that the club are doing with the food bank as well is absolutely fantastic and, should be applauded. So, yeah, long may it continue.
And of course, we're raising funds for the Newcastle United Fans Food Bank through our live event, which is taking place on Thursday, May 25th. Over half the tickets have now sold. So if you want to come along, I'll pop the link into the comments where you can secure your ticket. £5 secures your entry. Norberto Solano is a special guest alongside the Mirror, Simon Bird, Aaron, myself, Kieran Kelly, and Lee Ryder. So it's going to be a fantastic night. Now, to finish off, I did ask people to sum up Alexander Isak's assist in one word. It seems that everyone's kind of reading from the same dictionary, but I'll read through some of them. So Sam Mulner, of course, says Henry-esque. Nikki says juicy. Brian says dreamy. Craig says special. Jonathan just says ridiculous. Jack says filth. Jonathan says sublime. Beth says magnificent. Ian says sublime. Ian Crow says sick. Craig says filth. I'm going to click on show more replies when I'm a little bit scared of what the word's going to be. And it is
eviscerate him.
That's a word. And that's from Eric over in the States. Any other words we could use?
I'm a big fan of filth. I think that sums it up pretty well. And also, I'm not just saying this, but I did actually, the first word that did come to mind for me was Henri-esque. So good to see that me and Sam are on the same page as usual on that one.
Maisie says John. Billy says sexy. I can see that. The comparisons to Henri, apparently the club wanted to make them a long time ago. They were just a little bit wary. They're now everyone's making them. Is he Henri-esque?
He's certainly got the attributes that I think a young Henri had when he first came to the Premier League. I'm wary of putting the label on it too much because obviously Thierry Henry, one of the best strikers to ever play football. but there's some striking similarities. Isak, similar frame, same way of dribbling with the ball, eye for goal. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I'm going to. I think the comparisons are warranted.
We've got loads of other people now throwing in words. We've got Graham saying it was, I said that insane, didn't I? We've got Craig saying pure filth. We've got Craig saying, then we've got Graham saying it was illegal. We've got John saying it's unsum-upable. We've got Jason saying it was stunning. A lot of people just in love with the second best assist of the season so far.
Yeah, but I'm sure we're going to see another contender for assist of the decade on Sunday, given the current run.
Yeah, you've tipped Bruno, hasn't it? And we'll finish here with Les saying Bruno attending the Down syndrome game was brilliant. And yeah, it was the content the club are putting out now away from the pitch is absolutely brilliant. And if you haven't seen that visit, it'll be on Newcastle United's YouTube on the foundation as well. It was a special moment for those kids.
Yeah, amazing. And I think, as you say, Bruno didn't look like he was just there to, show up and do the job, giving them a lot of time. Must have been a fantastic experience for those young children. And yeah, just as you say, the type of content that we really, really want to see from the club.
Craig says Isak's run is overshadowing another fantastic performance by Willock. Excellent run and pass for Gillian and a quality shot. And I said we will finish on this comment. John, I thought Isak might struggle in the Premier League. I told you they existed, I said there were people out there that doubted him.
Probably 1% out of the 100, I think. But yeah, John's been proved wrong pretty quickly.
And still words coming. Ludicrous, says Rishi. I'm not sure if he's talking about John's comment. Mesmerizing, says Brian. And we'll finish with Malcolm's comment. It was Willock-esque.
I'd have to agree with that.
Malcolm knows. This has been the Everything is Black and White podcast. Thank you very much for you guys tuning in. Do head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to keep up to date with all the latest Newcastle United news. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a written review if you're on your podcast provider. And get your tickets for our live event. It's going to be a fantastic evening. So we hope to see you down there. We shall see you soon.